I think you're ready for the next talk now. Who's our next speaker, Sam?
So he is a husband, a father of two, a Hungarian, a pastor. He has a doctorate in pastoral psychology, a marriage couple therapist, and the list really does go on. Our next speaker is passionate about working with couples, looking into the dynamics of marriage at different stages. He's committed to empowering relationships. Today, he'll be dealing with some tough questions, looking at marital integrity in a culture of infidelity. Please welcome Gabor Mihalec.
Thank you. Hello. It's so good to see you. It's really inspiring. Do you know that little thing here that I hold in my hand? Of course you know it. It's a Rubik cube. I must admit that I have a very contradictory relationship to that toy. Since I was born, I know it, but I don't know how to relate to it. From one side, I'm really proud of it. Did you know that it is a Hungarian invention? Yes? Ernő Rubik is a Hungarian architect who invented the Rubik Cube in 1974. And I can tell you, 1974 is a really good year. Is there somebody who can connect to that? Yes, I feel already connected to you. On the other side, I really hate it because I could never solve it. No matter how hard I tried it, I could never solve the Rubik Cube. The most I could do were 2 sides, but never all the 6. But I have a cousin who can solve it in less than 30 seconds. She is the living evidence that it is possible to solve the Rubik Cube. Why am I telling this? Because it is the same journey that I discover among many couples with whom I work with. Many of them try to solve this mystery called marriage. They try it from one side, they try it from the other side, and it simply doesn't work, at least for them. And they come to the point when they get angry on the cube and throw it away because it is impossible to solve it, at least for them. Of course, there are people who are the living evidence that it is possible to live happily, faithfully, for decades with the same spouse. Just like the Bible says, may your fountain be blessed and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth, a loving though a graceful deer. May her breast satisfy you always and may you ever be intoxicated with her love. After listening to nearly 100 stories about infidelity in my couple therapy office, I came to the conclusion that there is a pattern how it comes to that point when you suddenly wake up in the bed of someone else. There is a pattern. And always when I hear a new story, I almost have a checklist, and I am checking. Okay, phase 1, phase 2 completed. When we come to phase 3, and it always goes on and on and on. And after listening so many stories and looking in the eyes of those people who have suffered this life event on either side of the story, I came to the conclusion that there is not only a pattern, but it is a phenomena that is explainable. And if it is explainable, it becomes even predictable. There are signs. If you see these signs in a relationship, you can predict that infidelity will somewhere, somehow, sometime happen. And if it is explainable and predictable, then I am sure that it is also preventable. So what I would like to do in the following minutes is to share some steps with you how to prevent infidelity in your marriage at a stage when it doesn't even come to your mind? What can you do to prevent infidelity? I'm sure all of you have this book already, where I describe 7 of the steps that I discovered with working with these couples. And today I would like to show 3 of these steps with you. And I'm very, very thankful for the division that it made it possible to translate this book into English and to share it with you. I think it is a big thing. There is also a chapter especially for pastors, because it breaks every time my heart when I hear that pastors cross boundaries that they never should cross. So let us see 3 of the steps. What can you do in your own marriage to prevent infidelity at a stage when it doesn't even come to your mind? Step number 1, define your relationship. Who are you for each other? What are you expecting from each other? What are the rules of the game that you are playing with each other? There is a couple in their 50s sitting in front of me in the office, and I have a very strange feeling while I'm listening to them. They have different surnames. This can mean anything. We didn't specify the nature of their relationship as they introduced themselves. And at one point of our conversation, I have the feeling that they are very committed to each other. They deeply love each other. They are really a married couple. And in the other second, I have a mixed feeling, as if they have met only on the street before they came into my office. So suddenly, I looked at them and asked the question, tell me, who are you to each other? The room became very silent. She looked at him with this face expression, you are the man, do something. He looked back, relationship, marriage, you know, this is for women, you do something. She looked back, I get angry if you don't do something. Suddenly, he started to search for the words and said, I don't really know how to express, you know, we actually live in an undefined relationship. And this was the very best definition that he could give to their relationship. They never thought about it, who they are to each other. What can they expect from each other? What are the game rules in their relationship? And I think every one of us will come to a life stage where you need to define your relationship. This moment came very early into my life, in my marriage. I was married for 2 months with the most beautiful woman on earth. And I was looking for something in my wallet, and suddenly, in a hidden compartment of my wallet, I found a condom. You know, just for the case. I'm sure you had these sexual education classes at school where the big message was the following: always have a condom on hand, you never know when you need it. I was an obedient student. I did it. I have put this condom in my wallet just for the case, and now I am standing there on that Wednesday afternoon with the condom in my hand and the dilemma in my mind: what to do with this condom. Should I put it back? If I put it back, I give myself the permission to cheat on my wife. I accept the fact that I am not in control of the situation, whom I let come close to me and whom not. If I throw it out, then I close the door. There's so many beautiful women on earth. I mean, 4 billion women on earth. And with that simple act to throw the condom away, I say no to every of them, except one. Can you imagine how hard the decision was at the age of 20, married for 2 months? I need to admit, I wasn't there to tell this to my wife. I was waiting for 18 years to tell her. But on that Wednesday afternoon, I threw the condom out of my wallet. First, I didn't dare to formulate for myself, I am married. And that means that I will have no sexual relationship with any other woman during my whole life than with my wife. But after a while, I started to formulate this sentence in my mind. A few months later, there was the first time as I stood in front of the mirror and I said it to myself. I am married. And that means that I will not share my sexual intimacy with any other woman than with my wife for the rest of my life. And suddenly, it gave me a new identity. I suddenly knew who I am in this relationship. And what does this relationship mean to me? So point number 1, define your relationship. Who are you to each other? And what are you expecting from each other? It really dawned on me on that day what it means to take responsibility for my wife and for our relationship. And on that day, I closed the door in front of others and narrowed my interest only to my wife. Number 2, mark and protect the boundaries of your relationship. Border protection is a very hot issue nowadays in Europe. I promise I will not talk about those kinds of borders, but the borders and boundaries of your marriage. Because if you get married, if I meet you, then a new form of life will get created. We. And this new form of life, of companionship, has its boundaries. And you need to protect these boundaries very intentionally. It's all about the radar. When you are single, then your radar is calibrated on a wide spectrum. You catch the signals of everyone who could be of interest to you. But then you meet one person who grasps your attention. Maybe she's the one. Maybe he's the one you are looking for. And the next stage is that you narrow your perception to that person only. But there's so many others, isn't it? What about those? Maybe you have already a list. Who could be the next ones whom you can try if there could be the right one? You don't delete them first, but you put them into the passive part of your memory. You put them into brackets. Then you come to a point when you get convinced. Yes, she's the one with whom I want to share my whole life. We call this stage wedding, marriage, and you narrow your perception. Your radar is calibrated from now on only to the signals of that person and nobody else, and you do something dramatic. You delete all the other names that you have put in the passive part of your memory. You narrow your interest only to that one person. What does boundary protection mean when you are a pastor? There are many different ways. I intentionally avoid being alone with a woman in the church building. If there is someone else around, their presence injects restraints into the situation and also gives the woman and me the sense of security. I avoid situations where I would need to travel alone with a woman in my car. I could tell you stories about the role of the car of the man in infidelity. I don't want to bother you with this. When I meet or greet a woman, I try to avoid physical contact. There are situations when you come down from the pulpit, oh, Pastor, this was such a wonderful message. I'm so happy that God spoke to you. I'm the one in control. I am controlling the space between us. Of course, it's a different thing when somebody comes who could be my mother or my grandmother and she needs that hug. Okay. And of course, it's a different thing when it is a lady who is a good friend of my wife and me. That's a different thing. I avoid physical contact also in a comfort situation. When I console a man, it is just natural to put my arm on his shoulder, to speak to him in a warm, caring voice. But if I console a woman, I need to rely solely on verbal condolation. It is also important for me to make it clear to everyone that I have a happy and loving relationship with my wife. We hold hands in church, and we show in appropriate ways that we love each other and that there is no space for a third person. Step number 3 that you can make is, let's make it 100%. What are the accomplishments in your life that you are proud of the most? Maybe something in sports, your education, your career. Did this success came by itself, or you had to do something for it? Well, let me ask it in a different way. Do you know a bank where you put in 60% and withdraw 100%? So why do you think that this would work with your marriage? It won't work. You need to put in your very best in order to achieve the very best results. I say it in a different way so everybody can understand it. My message is this: you can't take half-heartedly something that you expect to be the big thing of your life. You can't shoot a goal from the bench. You need to go on the field. To take the risk to be injured, you need to sweat, to cooperate. You need to kick the ball in a way that in that very second, your whole energy concentrates in that square centimeter that touches the ball. You can't be a spectator in your own life. Put in 100%. So these are the 3 stages that you can do even today. Define your relationship, mark and protect the boundaries, and let's make it 100%. How about if we inspire ourselves at the end of this presentation in a way that we make a loyalty resolution? I ask you to read this aloud with me together, just to have a sense how it feels to say out, to speak out these words loudly. I am married, which means that I have narrowed my perception of intimacy to accept only the signals and responses of one person. I want to be a good spouse for that person and that person only. I have intentionally chosen her, him, and don't want to spend the rest of my life looking for closeness and intimacy in the company of others. I have no desire or intention to squander the gift of my sexuality on anyone else. I will resolutely protect our relationship against all intruders, taking special care to guide its boundaries in all circumstances. I will take responsibility for my words and actions. I will avoid ambiguous language that may encourage flirtation of any kind, and will make it clear to all that I love my spouse and that I am not available for a relationship with anyone else. Thank you so much, and God bless you on your journey in your relationship, in your marriage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabor, for that very bold presentation.